And I'm a big rooter for CNN, but that tells you a lot, doesn't it? I mean, how do you guys think you are doing in that arena of like, this is a terribly divided country. We're not only politicized, a lot of people just hate the other side. And CNN, in my view, should be the place where both sides can watch. How do you think you're doing with it?
CNN is the place where both sides can watch. And I think, you know, my show is evidence of that. We have lawmakers on from both parties. We'll have Elizabeth Warren on one night. We'll have Ted Cruz on another night. I think lawmakers from both parties should take questions, and you should push both.
Bill Maher just did it again. Kaitlan Collins, CNN's self-proclaimed voice of reason, just walked into the lion's den and surprise, surprise, got absolutely shredded. Maher didn't just call out her wokeness and political bias, he dissected it piece by piece, leaving her scrambling for a comeback. It was brutal, it was hilarious, and honestly, it was long overdue. If you thought was done taking down media hypocrisy, think again, because this one's a masterclass. It all started with this short clip right here.
On the freeze in federal funding, who advised the president on the legality of telling government agencies that they don't have to spend money that was already appropriated by Congress?
Well, as the OMB memo states, this is certainly within the confines of the law. So White House counsel's office believes that this is within the president's power to.
Bill Maher has had enough of the left's meltdown over Karoline Leavitt ever since she stepped into the role of White House press secretary. The attacks have been relentless, from the View's cackling panel to the press corps frontmen Jimmer Oster and Kaitlan Collins. Their entire playbook: corner her with gotcha questions and hope she fumbles. Case in point, that clip you just watched. Kaitlan asked about Trump's decision to fire a few prosecutors, a move completely
within his authority. She knew it, we knew it.
But she asked anyway, hoping Karoline would stumble. Spoiler alert, Karoline didn't. She hit back with a non-nonsense common-sense answer, but Kaitlan, she couldn't let it go. Desperate to spring the trap, she doubled down, and that's when it all fell apart.
So they disagree with lawmakers who say that they don't have the power to freeze this funding.
Again, I would point you to the language in the memo that clearly states this is within the law.
And all that happened on Friday night. The administration fired several inspectors general without giving Congress the 30-day legally required notification that they were being fired. I think only 2 were left at DHS and the DOJ. And then yesterday we saw several prosecutors, I believe 12, fired from the Justice Department who worked on the investigations into the president. As you know, they are career prosecutors, therefore they are afforded civil service protections. How is the administration deciding which laws to follow and which ones to ignore?
So it is the belief of this White House and the White House counsel's office that the president was within his executive authority to do that. He is the executive of the executive branch, and therefore he has the power to fire anyone within the executive branch that he wishes to. There's also a case that went before the Supreme Court in 2020, Scala Law LLC versus the Customs, Bureau Protection. I would advise you to look at that case, and that's the legality that this White House has wrestled.
So you see why Bill Maher would be upset. He just couldn't stand the hypocrisy from the left, so he tore into the left like a wrecking ball on rampage. But before we get to that, here's Kaitlan Collins continuing things with her usual playbook: rapid-fire questions, loaded statements, and that smug gotcha tone. Classic move: confuse, corner, and conquer. But Karoline Leavitt, she saw it coming a mile away, because underneath all the word salad, Kaitlan's entire argument boiled down to one thing: was it legal for Trump to fire DOJ prosecutors? And Leavitt didn't just answer, she demolished the narrative. It was legal, it is legal, it's called executive authority, and Trump exercised it. End of story. But here's where it gets funny. Kaitlan didn't know when to quit. She doubled down, rambling about norms, ethics, and the bigger picture, as if legal facts care about feelings. Meanwhile, Leavitt stood there calm and composed, delivering a masterclass in how to wreck woke narratives with nothing but the truth.
Confident that if they bring lawsuits against you, those prosecutors who were fired, that they will succeed.
We will win in court.
And
yes.
Did he personally direct this, given they worked on the classified documents investigation and the election interference investigation?
This was a memo that went out by the Presidential Personnel Office, and the president is the leader of this White House. So yes.
Karoline Leavitt's calmness and sharp intellect are nothing short of impressive, while Kaitlan Collins fired off question after question, each one more convoluted than the last. Leavitt never flinched. She didn't fall for the bait, didn't get tangled in the word games. Instead, she cut through the noise like a hot knife through butter, separating the chaff from the wheat and zeroing in on the core issue. No matter how Kaitlan tried to spin it, whether with moral grandstanding, legal
gymnastics, or Fox concern,
Leavitt kept her cool and delivered the same answer, just wrapped in different parcels. It was legal for Trump to fire the prosecutors, plain and simple. But here's the interesting part: Leavitt didn't just answer the questions, she exposed the game. Kaitlan wasn't after clarity, she was fishing for a sound bite, and Leavitt, sharp as ever, made sure the only sound bite worth airing was the truth. It was a masterclass in handling media bias with grace, wit, and unwavering confidence. But Maher had had it up to his neck. He felt that the young White House press secretary was being unfairly targeted, so he had to step in first. He gave Kaitlan a taste of her own medicine by setting a trap for her.
I'm a big rooter for CNN, but that tells you a lot, doesn't it? I mean, how do you guys think you are doing in that arena of like, this is a terribly divided country. We're not only politicized, a lot of people just hate the other side. And CNN, in my view, should be the place where both sides can watch. How do you think you're doing?
CNN loves to brand itself as a neutral, unbiased news outlet, just the facts, no agenda, but that facade crumbles the moment you scratch the surface. In reality, the network leans left, and not just subtly, it's baked into the narratives they push, the guests they invite, and of course the questions they ask. They don't just report the news, they shape it, filter it, and spin it to fit a preferred storyline. Em appears to know that very well, but decides to catch Kaitlan in the trap that she had attempted to set for Caroline Leavitt. Now watch her fall into Maher's trap. Kaitlan kicked things off with the usual PR spin, proudly claiming that CNN is a neutral network, a fair, balanced platform where voices from all sides, regardless of political affiliation or ideology, are welcome to air their views. To back it up, she threw out a couple of token examples. We've had Ted Cruz, we've had Elizabeth Warren, as if sprinkling in a few high-profile guests somehow proves ideological balance. But here's the problem, Cherry. Picking a couple of appearances doesn't erase the network's overwhelming left-leaning slant. It's like tossing a single green grape into a bowl of red ones and calling it a fruit salad. Sure, CRWS might get 5 minutes of airtime, but it's often framed with loaded questions, dismissive commentary, and a post-interview panel ready to fact-check anything that doesn't fit the narrative. Kaitlan's argument wasn't just weak, it was downright
Laughable, because if CNN were truly neutral, she wouldn't need to
name drop rare conservative guests like their collector's items. Kaitlan had just fallen in Bill Maher's trap, and watch him obliterate her into Smither. I'm a
conservative in America, and I'm watching CNN just for the straight middle of the road. That's what I hear for 15 minutes. It's great, and then Lonely Scott. It does look, I mean, and when you see the path, it does look like tokenism. It's kind of like the same as The View. It's like it's almost better to have nobody there, like MSNBC, than to have just
Bill Maher's right. Token appearances aren't the hallmark of an unbiased outlet. They are the opposite. He didn't just call it out, he tore the argument to shreds. According to Maher, parading a conservative face every once in a blue moon is actually worse than not having one at all, at least when a panel is entirely left-leaning. Viewers know what they are getting, but pretending to be neutral while subtly pushing an agenda, that's deception, plain and simple. Maher didn't hold back. He blasted Kaitlan and CNN for pandering to the woke left while sidelining conservative voices. It's not about balance, it's about optics. They want the appearance of fairness without actually delivering it. Maher even pointed out how when conservatives do appear, they're often treated like villains in a scripted drama, interrupted, misquoted, and fact-checked in real time. But here's the kicker. Maher argued that CNN's pretense of neutrality actually fuels division. It's not
just dishonest, it's dangerous if you're going to lean left-on.
It don't gaslight viewers into believing they're getting both sides when one side's MIC is always quieter. Now with Bill Maher's initial intervention, you'll think that Kaitlan and her woke crew would ease up on their attacks on Leavitt, but they doubled the intensity. Here's one of them trying to corner Leavitt.
According to an IG report from the Social Security Administration, there was $71 billion worth of fraud in one single fiscal year that we know about. And so that is a lot of fraud, Peter.
To be clear, that $71 billion was from 2015 to 2022, so it wasn't in just 1 year. And it was
$71 billion.
But it wasn't in 1 year, just over multiple years, from 2015 to 2022.
So are you defending $71 billion in fraud, Peter? That's a lot of money. Why is the media so against cutting waste, fraud, and abuse from the government? I don't get it.
I just want to ask a question.
We won't be deterred. We will not be deterred from people like you and the press.
Just dropped a bombshell. The Trump administration uncovered a staggering $7 billion in fraud and was ready to crack down on it. But here's where things got messy. In what was probably a slip of the tongue, Carolina mentioned the fraud was discovered within a single fiscal year. That's all the woke press needed. They smelled blood and pounced, circling like vultures, desperate to turn a minor misstatement into their next gotcha moment. But Leavitt, she didn't just
dodge the trap, she flipped the entire
script. Calm, composed, and sharp as ever, she fired back with a question that left the press squirming. Are you serious? IO usually trying to defend $70 billion in fraud committed against the American people. Silence, awkward, uncomfortable silence, because of course they weren't going to touch that one. Suddenly the narrative wasn't about a verbal slip, it was about where the media's priorities really stood. Leavitt exposed the game. They weren't interested in the fraud itself, only in protecting their narrative. It was a masterclass in how to turn media bias into self-inflicted damage, but like a pack of hyenas, the woke press wouldn't give up until they've secured their pound of flesh, so they staged a comeback.
Something that wasn't true, which you said that they have found before that they believe there have been tens of millions of people who were receiving money who are dead on the Social Security list. The same report that you referred to said that almost none of those individuals are receiving
Peter, did you watch the full clip of the interview that I did when I said that? And I said there are a lot of unanswered questions, and we suspect there could be tens of millions of people.
I'm saying the IG report.
So you just said what I said is not true. In fact, it was true. That's a suspicion that this administration